Hey everybody, CJ Maurer here with Complete Payroll. And in case you haven't noticed, we are in the middle of a global pandemic that has transformed life as we know it, not just personal lives, but certainly has impacted the American workforce. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people without work. There's a lot of businesses that are unsure of where their revenues are coming from. And certainly there's been very swift and sweeping government legislation led by a $2.2 trillion stimulus package that's designed to support both employers and employees alike through this very uncertain time. Whenever we're faced with new legislation that could impact employers running a business, managing workforce, we've often turned to our friend Kevin Wicka from the Tarantino Law Firm in Buffalo, New York. And so I'm super excited to have Kevin here with us, as well as his colleague Jake, to really just talk about everything that's going on, and specifically the government legislation that employers should know about and really have a plan to, if they're going to utilize it, how they can do that and to what extent, and really just talk through the options from a legal perspective. So first of all, Kevin, Jake, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. I'll start with the first question. You guys both work for the same law firm, so maybe you can each take a turn at answering this. How are you guys doing, and how is your firm adjusting to this new reality?
Well, CJ, thanks for having us. We're doing well, all things considered. I mean, obviously, it's a dramatic time. It's a dynamic time for everyone in all different fields, and it's certainly no different in law. Fortunately for us, we have been set up with the ability to work remotely for our workforce. We've, even prior to this pandemic situation, have had the ability to have our employees do that, and a lot of our employees have taken advantage of that. So we've had the technology in place. Our files are scanned in the digital format. And so there were certainly some adjustments we had to make as to our procedures and logistics. And fortunately, we're fully functioning in this new norm that we're all experiencing. So as far as our end of it, we're about doing as well as could be expected under the circumstances.
Nice, Jake. How has it been for you?
It's been different, of course, but things are rolling along, and we were well positioned to work remotely really quickly, which has been helpful. I represent I do a lot of corporate law, and I represent a lot of small and medium-sized businesses. And so a lot of my work is remote by nature, phone, email, that kind of stuff. So that hasn't changed too significantly. What's changed now is obviously the subject matter and what's going on in the world with my clients and their day-to-day operations. But otherwise, largely it's business as usual.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. I mean, someone like me, I recently started my own marketing agency. So since December 1st, I've been working from home. Now, obviously, everybody knows I still do a lot of work with Complete Payroll, which is why I'm here having this conversation with you guys. So it's something that I've certainly adjusted to, but this has definitely been unique because my wife also works. So we're also often on calls and Zoom meetings throughout the day. Fortunately, we do have a babysitter that can come when we need, and she's actually downstairs with my two little ones right now. And I've got my fingers crossed that, my daughter isn't going to come up the stairs and interrupt this meeting. But, she's definitely a very persistent individual. So, I know that's been hard, but, I have to say, that's already happened. It's already happened for other people that I've been on calls with. I think everybody's just kind of taking it in stride and realizing the constraints that we're all up against. So it's been unique in a lot of ways, but I think you're seeing, I'm personally been impressed the way everybody has responded so quickly with a good attitude. I think overall, the business culture here is trying to, make do with what it has and make progress and remain, as much as you said, Jake, business as usual as possible. Before we get into some of the questions where I want to talk about, really learn more about the stimulus package, the payroll protection program, the SBA loans, and some other related things. Kevin, I'd like for you guys to explain, even though you work at the same firm, you have slightly different areas of focus. Jake, before we, since you're the first time joining us, I'd like to hear more about you. First, Kevin, could you provide just a quick reminder for anybody or for any of the new viewers, what your area of focus is at Tarantino Law Firm?
Certainly. I am focusing on primarily labor and employment issues. So I represent small and medium-sized employers. I represent some individuals as well. And I focus primarily in the area of labor and employment counseling as well as litigation if needed. So that would include issues such as whether you're dealing with unemployment, contracts, EEOC, Division of Human Rights, discrimination, different things that might come up along those lines, restrictive covenants, whether they're non-compete issues that we do for employers, all of those different types of things. So this has been an incredibly busy couple of weeks, not only the stimulus package that passed, but some of the leave law amendments, paid leave amendments that happened in New York, as well as federal law as well. So there's been a lot of information to keep on top of for the client. So my area crosses over a lot with Jake's because he does so much of the corporate work. So a lot of our clients that would have labor and employment issues may have needs, whether it's setting up an LLC or different corporate governance issues or different things that can come up that cross over with his practice.
Thanks. Jake, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, your area of focus?
Sure, yeah. So primarily I'm a litigator, and I work heavily with corporate clients, but over the last, I'd say 6 years or so, my practice has grown to be largely also transactional work. So I represent small, medium-sized businesses and everything from startup phase to acquisitions to contract reviews and drafting, and then the litigation that comes with that. If we have to go after somebody to defend something or defend a lawsuit if a client gets sued, I do that. I have a kind of a niche area of my practice, which is with the bar and restaurant industry. And so I do a lot of work with clients in the hospitality space, helping them to get liquor licenses, helping them defend liquor licenses if they get in trouble, and providing advice as to how to navigate that world because it has its own court, it has its own laws, and it's hugely important. And even now with everything that's happened with COVID, restaurants are only doing takeout, and there's been really significant changes to how they can serve alcohol. So that's a huge part of my practice, and something I love doing because I love these folks, and I love anyone that wants to work 14 to 16 hours a day with very little possibility of a significant financial return. It's hard not to be in their corner.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, especially in Western New York, there's such a culture around going out to eat too.
Absolutely.
We really love and celebrate our restaurant scene. And I saw somebody post a meme on Facebook recently where it was just kind of acknowledging how, wow, it really took this global pandemic for me to realize that I need to find more hobbies besides going out to eat. And I was like, I mean, I do have some hobbies. I like to work out. I like to play golf and stuff like that. But I was like, man, that's a little true for me too. But yeah, they've really been, the restaurant and hospitality industry has really kind of been the story of this whole situation. It's really unfortunate. It's really encouraging to see a lot of people coming through to support these people, ordering a lot of takeout, which is nice, but still it's got to be a really difficult time for them.
It is. And what's really not surprising, but just really encouraging to see is when you go to these places for takeout is the community support. I mean, if you have a favorite restaurant, just because they're doing takeout doesn't mean you're going to stop going there. But just the really simple hustle that these guys have, they're just working like dogs right now with really limited resources. Many of them have no staff. So many places are down to a cook and a runner. And they're doing everything they can to stay above water. And, some of my clients are actually really doing quite well. So I think that industry it's obviously been hard hit. The restart's going to be really tricky once things normalize again. But for the time being, I mean, you're seeing I don't mean to over romanticize it, but you're seeing the human spirit at its best. You're seeing people just dig deep, do what they have to do to get by. and you're seeing the community support them. So it's there's some optimism there on my end from what I see.
Cool. Well, let's talk about what I think is something that every employer should pay attention to, if not really understand, which is all of the government actions that have taken place to try and provide some support during this uncertain time. There is the Payroll Protection Program, which are SBA loans, which can be forgiven if they're, spent on payroll and other things. And there's increases in the average weekly unemployment benefits and, some other things, but it really all starts with the CARES Act, which is the $2.2 trillion stimulus package that was recently signed into law by the president. Can one or both of you guys, and I don't know who wants to go first, just kind of walk me and walk anybody who's watching right now through that? I mean, we don't need a breakdown of every single section, but what are the main components of it and their implications that people should know?
Maybe I'll start just real quick and then throw it to Jake. But as you noted, it's a multi-pronged law. It has different components to it. In addition to the stimulus money that was going out, there is an unemployment enhanced benefit that we'll talk about a little bit in a minute. And then the big component of it is the ability to try to lend some help to the employers, which is what you've referenced now a few times, the Payroll Protection Program, which is a way to try to boost up some of the employers and incentivize them to keep their employees during this period of time. And Jake can give you a little bit more of a better overview than that. But this is a huge law that has multi aspects to it. There's several aspects to it, and there's still it's very much a moving target. So we're going to do our best to try to raise some issues for people on this. But please keep in mind that things have been changing literally almost daily with it. But we can certainly touch on what some of the high points that are things that people should be considering, especially if you own your own business.
Yeah, we should probably specify that at this moment of this recording, it's about noon Eastern time on Friday, April 3rd. So, I mean, things could change by the time we're done with this recording at the rate that this is going.
Yeah, absolutely. The program, the PPP, or the Paycheck Protection Program, Payroll Protection Program, is really pretty fascinating. It's very comprehensive, and the first round of it goes live today, CJ, like I said, April 3rd at 3:00. So that's when you can start to apply. And we will know a lot more once these applications start going in. But of that $2.2 trillion, from what we understand right now, is there's $349 billion that are being allocated in that bigger piece of the pie for forgivable loans to allow employers to pay their employees. And so as of today, so I guess we'll maybe start with a little timeline and then I'll go through some of the details. Is that okay?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that'd be very beneficial.
Okay, so today is the application start date for small businesses and sole proprietors. Generally what we're talking about when we say a small business is businesses with under 500 employees, and that is the vast majority of companies in America. Companies with over 500 employees do have a way to apply, but there's some special requirements for that, and given the fact that that's not the majority of my clients or the businesses in this country, we'll sort of stay away from that. And then on April 10th, independent contractors and those who are self-employed can start to apply. So I've had a lot of calls from people who have a DBA or self-employed or are primarily independent contractors. Their application date actually starts next week. The point of all this is, though, is start to get your applications together now. Start to work with your attorneys to get this stuff in order, because there will be a cap, and the government has said that they expect that there will not be enough money probably to fund all of the applications. That's just the reality of this. Even though it's an extraordinarily large amount of money and probably the most comprehensive legislation we've ever seen for something like this, there is a limit to how much they can offer. So get applications together now, get with your attorneys, and get this stuff going. What we're looking at as far as what the loans encompass is a forgivable portion for payroll costs, most mortgage interest, and rents. Additionally, utility costs and other ancillary business expenses can be forgiven, but the primary portion of what's going to be forgivable in the loan is going to be your payroll costs. And that's going to go for 8 weeks after the loan is granted. This will really be pretty extraordinary, I think, for a lot of small businesses in the country.
So here's a question. If I wanted to start an application, would I go to my attorney first? Because I understand that you can go to lenders directly, banks, credit unions. If somebody's like, okay, wow, okay, I definitely need to apply for this, how would they start?
So really 3 ways. You can go directly to your SBA lender. Any SBA lender or federally insured bank can help facilitate this. Your attorneys can do it and your accountants can do it. So the best way to do it, and you can do it on your own. But the best thing to do is make sure you're getting really good advice because, like Kevin said before, this thing has changed a lot, and we've been in touch with banks, accountants, other attorneys. And there are still conflicting ideas about how certain things are going to work. We don't really know the practicality of it yet. We know kind of what the basic rubric is here. And I think, everyone has an idea of how we're going to get clients to get this funding as quickly as possible. But you want to speak to somebody who knows this area and who's well-versed in it.
Nick, do you have any idea of knowing if something will be, I know they said okay, payroll costs, rent, mortgage interest, some utilities. Mm-hmm. I think when I first was reading this, it was my interpretation that before you take the loan, it would not necessarily be guaranteed that any or everything will be forgiven. Is that a misinterpretation? And if not, maybe how would a borrower understand, or how could they be reassured that what they're using the loan for would be forgiven?
So that's one of the 2 big questions we're getting a lot. And the reality is we don't know for sure at this point. Everything that I've read and everyone I've talked to, it seems that the primary forgivable portion of the loan is going to be whatever's used for payroll cost. Anything above that, mortgage interest, rent, utility, those kind of things are slated to be forgiven, but it looks like what is going to be done is there's going to be some sort of almost order in which portions of the loan are forgiven. So it seems to be at this point, and Kevin, jump in if I'm misstating anything here, of course, but it seems to be that payroll costs will be forgiven, and then after that, they're going to kind of go down the list and see what else can be forgiven on the loan. The other big question we're getting from everyone is, how much do we get? And that is also sort of a tricky thing to answer. Again, nobody's done any applications yet, right? We're 3 hours away from the application start time. So we don't know. What they're saying is that they're going to take 2 months from last year's payroll, and then you're going to get that plus 25% for the loan for this period. There's a number of variables that go into this. So those 2 things, what's actually going to be forgiven and how much you're going to get, are a little up in the air, a little mercurial at this point. The nice thing is that there's no fees to apply with the SBA. There's no collateral. There's no personal guarantees. And you're not required to take the loan. So everyone should apply. Everyone should get in touch with their attorneys or their representatives and get their applications in. And if you don't like the terms or whatever comes back is not what you were hoping for, you're not bound to anything. So it doesn't hurt to go through the effort. There's some work involved in the application, but it's not a hurdle that, if you're running your own business, this isn't a hurdle that you're not going to be able to get over.
Yeah. So here's a question. You said 2 months of last year's payroll plus 25%. I started my business last year, but I became an S Corp on January 1st and I did not put myself on payroll until January 1st, 2020. So does that mean me or other businesses like me would not be eligible?
So I don't think so, because I think you can still apply under the idea is to encompass all those different scenarios. What is unclear at this point is, do we take your payroll from before you became an S corp and lump that into this current application? Because that's going to be your best payroll history. And that's, again, that's one of those little areas that we're not completely clear on yet. I think that's what we're going to have to do, because you and a number of other people I've talked to have had very similar scenarios where they've changed their corporate status, so they went from a corporation to an LLC or something like that. And so I think it appears that there's a mechanism, if you've changed your business model, but you're still really involved in the same type of business, that you can use the payroll data from your prior entity and carry it over.
Okay, good to know. Thanks for clarifying.
CJ, I was going to jump in on one last thing to go back to what you had asked about. I don't disagree with anything Jake said. The one issue I think is important to remember with the forgiveness, and this applies to the sort of touches on the employment aspect of things, is that this is a law that's designed to incentivize employers to keep people employed to the extent they can. So one of the issues in forgiveness has to do with when you get the loan, they look at the origination date, who's employed, and if you hold on to your employees, that is going to be an issue that affects forgiveness. So if for some reason you have to reduce force, there can be a proportionate effect then on the level of the loan as to what's forgiven. That's kind of an overly general way of saying it, but what they're looking for is they don't want to give these loans out and then have people lay off all their workers. So that's going to affect having it remain as a loan to being able to go to something that's forgiven. So that's really the point of this, is to try to incentivize employers to the extent they can to hang on to their employees.
Yeah, that's a really important part of it. Yet at the same time, and please correct me if I'm wrong to maybe transition to this, at the same time, a lot of people are losing their jobs. And obviously we know part of the CARES Act, this big stimulus package, includes significant increases to the unemployment insurance benefit. From what I was told and from what I understand, the traditional maximum weekly benefit for unemployment was $540 a week. That's been increased by $600, so more than doubled to $1,140 a week. So is that correct? And if so, what else should people understand about any changes to the unemployment insurance?
Correct. So there's a couple changes that have been impacted by this law. So the first you touched on is this enhancement, the supplement that occurs. So the traditional amount of, you said 540, I thought it was 504, but I could be off on that. But it's, I believe it's $504.
Yeah, you know better.
But if you can you're going to be entitled to that. And they increase the amount of time. So normally you'd get that for 26 weeks. That's been, now they've extended to 39 weeks. There's a 13-week period supplement that starts April 5th, and it goes for 13 weeks. It runs up until July 31st, that people can receive for specific criteria that is COVID-19 related. So loss of employment related to COVID-19 circumstances. In New York State's unemployment website, for example, lists out all this criteria. There's a lot of different, it's a broad classification, even including people that may have to quit their job as a result of some COVID-19 related reason, that they can receive on top of that 504, the additional 600 up until July 31st. So that's the one major component that's different. The other is that traditionally people that are self-employed or independent contractors have not been eligible for unemployment, and they can be eligible under this program as well. So there's some rules and criteria on that. You have to have been in business for 18 months. You had to have earned at least $4,500. There's a few other things, but that's something that has been different as well compared to a traditional unemployment program.
There's a lot of stuff that you just shared there. Thank you. That was super valuable. I actually do want to get into state versus federal, but before I do that, I want you triggered a thought. So I know of a couple of business owners that either have or are considering firing themselves from the business and putting themselves on unemployment. Is there anything about that type of structure that would be different than, traditional, employee of a business getting, laid off or furloughed as a result of this?
Well, they have their own special application. So when you go to the unemployment website, you'll see if you are in that situation as self-employed, they have their own even flow charts that are on there that are very helpful. They're actually really helpful to see to make sure that you would actually qualify. And then if you do, when you click on the link, they have a different application than other employees. So it is a little bit different, but it's never been available before, something like that. So there are certain criteria that have to be met in order for them to be able to use it. So it is certainly something that they should look into. And there is a specific page just for self-employed individuals that they can access on the New York State unemployment page website.
Now, is this flow chart and calculation specific to COVID-19?
Correct. Yes. Yes. In fact, they call it, I actually had printed it out, Guidance for Self-Employed Individuals, How to File an Unemployment Insurance Claim on New York State's Department of Labor website. And it's a specific questionnaire, and this is as a result of the COVID-19 situation. So they have their own page, and then from there you can get directed to different pages. But it is certainly comprehensive and a dramatic difference from what we've seen with the unemployment program in the non-COVID-19 situation.
How is, to your knowledge, I know you guys practice mostly in New York State, but how is the New York State program different from other states? And is there anything that is being driven by federal mandates as part of the new law?
Well, the $600 supplement is a federal mandate. The ability for self-employed individuals to take advantage of it, that comes from the federal as well. So the New York side of it was always the 26 weeks, the 504 is the maximum. So there are some other things that the federal is driving money into the individual states by adding the supplement. They've also, there's another really good flow chart if you go to the COVID-19 page of unemployment. So some people, for example, were unemployed before this. So what happens to them? Can they take advantage of it? So they deal with that too. And the short answer is yes, they may be able to. And so people that have either exhausted their benefits, it can actually be retroactive. If you were on, I think it's a date in July, and you've exhausted your 26 weeks and you can't get a job now, you can reapply and get the 13 weeks. So even though you exhausted the 26 weeks. So that's all being driven from the federal government that's coming out to the states. So you're essentially taking what was the state component, and now you're adding these federal supplements into each individual state's program.
Very good. What about the just the checks that are being issued to people, to adults, right? As far as I understand, a big part of the stimulus package is like everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, most people. I think there's some limits based on income, but most of the American population is going to get a check from the government on top of all of this. How does that work?
So it appears that there's, I think it's $1,200 or $1,250, something like that, that's going to be issued to everyone who makes under a fairly high threshold. I think it encompasses like 92 or 95% of the population.
I think it might be 200,000, an adjusted gross income of under 200,000. I'm certainly not an accountant on that issue. I can tell you this, that receiving that money has no impact on your ability to collect unemployment. It's not an offset or a reduction or anything along those lines. Sorry about that, Jake. Just want to
quickly, is that $200,000 individual or household? Do you know?
No, I believe it's household.
Okay.
Let me qualify this. I'm stepping out of my lane a little bit here with this, as I'm certainly not an accountant, but that's my understanding of the law.
Yeah, I think you're right on that, Kevin. Yeah, I think this is sort of similar to when I don't know if people remember this, but when the Bush administration came in, George W. Bush, there was like a payment that was made to most American citizens, some sort of stipend just to kind of hopefully drive consumer spending. And that's what this is. Obviously, this is also buttressed by the fact that so many people are out of work at this point. But this has nothing to do with any of the applications for the CARES Act or the Payroll Protection Program or anything like that.
Okay. Yeah. So guys, I mean, we've talked a lot about, this, checks to individuals. We've talked about unemployment insurance benefit increases, and certainly the payroll or paycheck protection program with these forgivable SBA loans. And even if they're not forgiven, I believe the interest rate is 0.5%, right? So like, is there anything else that you think, employers especially, I mean, that's most of the people who follow along with our content are either small business owners or HR managers who managing workforces, or other people who work in more managerial or administrative capacities at a business. What would you, is there anything else that we haven't covered that you think might be of importance to people that are running a business or managing a workforce?
Yeah, I think I think what's important really is more of a general, how do I say it? It's the general advice I'm giving to all my clients right now, because people just don't know what's going on. And it's to talk to your attorneys, talk to your accountants, talk to other business owners. Everyone's sort of learning this day by day. And there's no legal advice. This is just practical advice. But I think what clients and businesses need to realize that things are changing dramatically. I mean, they know this. They don't need to realize it. This is very apparent. But the way that everything's done right now is, what I'm advising a lot of my clients right now is start looking at what if revenue is going to basically stop or be diminished significantly, then what you need to start doing is looking at what you have as far as lines of credit versus the payroll protection program, and see what's out there for interest rates and see what's sustainable for you at this point. A lot of employees are frankly realizing that it's beneficial for them to be on unemployment with the increased wages. And maybe that's better for the employers. I know lots of employers don't want to let people go, but your employees might actually do better in the short term. And if you need to free up some room and reduce some expenses, it might be beneficial for everyone. So at this point, I think it's just having conversations, and everyone's trying to learn as much as they can. And again, it's day by day, hour by hour.
Yeah. One of the things I would add on that, CJ, would be you had asked about a little earlier about who to talk to on these situations. And I guess the benefit that I think of having someone involved, whether it's your attorney or someone else, is that, as Jake noted earlier, there's a limited pool of money here. And I think that there's going to be an overwhelming demand of this. So it's a situation where if you put the paperwork in and it gets rejected, you might go to the back of the line again. So it's one of those things where when you get up there and you get your shot at the plate, you certainly want to make sure that you're in as good of a position as possible to be in compliance with all of the different moving targets that they're putting on this. So that's one of the things that I'd encourage people to do. That it could be a situation where you're spending a little bit to put yourself in a much better position coming out of the back end of it.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, would totally agree with you guys. I mean, Complete Payroll, right? We provide a lot of services related to managing employees. HR services, time and attendance, reporting around ACA and, background check, like just a lot of services. But categorically, like the main thing that we do is we process payroll. And as a payroll processor, you are a mechanical processor. We are not actually legally allowed to give advice. Yet at the same time, we're constantly publishing content, updates, resources. I mean, we've been doing this for years, but we've certainly ramped this up right now around this current situation. We've been at the very forefront of the situation, starting with the work from home mandates issued by Governor Cuomo in the state of New York, following other states, followed by the federal mandates, followed by layoffs, followed by options to support employers, whether it be through the shared work program or unfortunately resources to help them lay off employees. We don't like doing that, but if our clients and employers need it, we put it out there. And then we've since followed up with several emails alerting people about this new legislation, the CARES Act, the Payroll Protection Program, unemployment insurance. And we even have like a very comprehensive COVID-19 for resources employer page, so which we'll make sure is linked to on this. So I say that to plug the content in a little way, to be quite frank, because it's really useful and a lot of people are finding it effective. There's also a way for people to subscribe for COVID-19 related updates on our site. All you got to do is visit our site and there's going to be a little pop-up there. But I also say that to underscore your point, despite the fact that so many people are coming to Complete Payroll for content around this situation. As a mechanical processor, we're not legally able to provide advice. We can only, share facts and share best practices that are being shared by other people. So even though we've kind of like asserted ourselves as an authority on this topic, we're constantly recommending people to talk to their attorneys, talk to their accountants, talk to other business advisors that can help them navigate the situation. I certainly believe that, as I always have, but I certainly believe that having you guys on here with us today has been tremendously helpful, and certainly helped us accomplish that, which is always our goal of helping provide updates, value, insight, and best practices to our clients, who are business owners, HR managers, operation managers, and things like that. Before we close this, I want to each give you guys a chance to share, first of all, if you have any like final comments or words of advice for employers, and then how anybody might be able to get in touch with you if they're interested.
Sure. The best way to get in touch with me would be through my email right now, through our website you can go to, which is tarantinolaw.com. My email is KWicka, WICKA, at tarantinolaw.com. And, the best advice I would have for everyone is, we're taking it day by day, and, we're going to come through this at the end of it. And the way we're trying to use it in our firm is to push ourselves, and are there new levels that we can use, such as technology? Are there different processes that we can put in place? And we're going to try to come out of this with some better practices and make the best out of what is a situation that there's a limited amount that we can control. And so we're doing our best for our clients and for all of each one of us to try to come out of this, which is obviously a very difficult situation for everyone.
Yeah. Jake, how about you?
Yeah, so we're working remotely now, but if you call the office, which is 716-849-6500, calls will route to me. Email is great as well. It's J, and then my last name, which is Piorkowski. It's P as in Peter, IORKOWSKI at tarantinolaw.com. Either way.
By the way, I'll make sure that this is included,
okay,
below. I'll drop in your guys' contact information.
Oh, perfect. So those are the easiest ways to get a hold of me. We're all hands on deck. So we're here for questions. We're here for consultations. We're here to handle these applications and other corporate issues that are going to come up and employment issues that are going to come up. And I think that the advice right now is anytime, I was a history major in undergrad and also in grad school and before law school. And a simple review is going to show that any crisis, any situation that's unique and novel to our society, you're always going to look back at it and say, man, there were really some people that saw an opportunity and took the opportunity and came out much stronger. And I think for businesses right now, that's really key. And I know that's hard, and I know that seems for a lot of people insurmountable. And I know a lot of people have just closed their doors. And I can't make those decisions for you, and I can't make these recommendations. But I think if we can find some optimism here in knowing that things will change, but life will return to normal, that's really valuable. And it's simple. It's the simple human determination that we all have, that we're going to do anything we can to take care of our families, keep our businesses running, keep our doors open. And as long as clients kind of keep that focus, I think people will be okay. I think they'll do well.
I agree, and I love hearing that. I'm generally an optimistic person. We obviously can't ignore reality, but I think some perspective like that to avoid things like recency bias is certainly important. Kevin and Jake, I can't thank you guys enough for coming on. I think this was not only fun for me, but tremendously valuable for anybody who watched. As everybody knows, there'll be a lot of ways to share this and access it, and I will make sure that there are ways that you can reach out to Complete Payroll, as well as the Tarantino Law Firm through both Kevin and Jake. Guys, thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of your week and weekend, and who knows, maybe in a couple weeks we can reconvene if we feel it's appropriate. Thanks a lot.
Great. Thanks, CJ.
Thanks, CJ.